Yeah. So anyways, so we're talking about the happiness advantage and principle number 4, which is falling up. And Maz just brought up a good point about, your life experiences kind of dictate, whether it be sales or something else. Anybody else have any thoughts on it? Jeffrey, what did you think?
Well, I think what Matt was saying was right. I think Maz or Joe may have said something that it's basically, how you look at the events. Karen's famous for saying everything happens for a reason. And, it's just, I think we say that just because it's, there are challenges in life, and you can look at it a bunch of different ways. Sometimes you have to see the dark in order to see the light, right? You need the full spectrum, and it is learning, but it all boils down to what you guys are saying. It's how you handle whatever it is, right? Joe, you're saying you'd never been to war, but I'm sure you've had things happen in your life. Loved ones die, seeing accidents, things like that. But there's certain things that you see in your life that you have to, get a story in your head around it, that things like that happen. But you got to look for the good in it, whatever it is, right? I mean, I always like to say, the only good that comes out of like losing a loved one is that you're able to turn around, everybody else is still here, and hug them, tell them that you love them, really cherish what you have. I mean, that's the only good that I usually pull out of something like that, because it's hard to explain when you lose someone. It's just, that's my way of moving on, right? I mean, if that makes sense to you guys.
Absolutely.
Makes total sense to me. So it's funny because it actually talks about how there's like certain events in people's lives, and you brought up, they brought up bereavement at one point. And when I look at kind of how I've lived my life, right? And the moment that, I watched my mother pass away, to me, that was, and I know I'm going to get a little deep here, that moment to me was a game changer, because it's sad and I was extremely sad, right? But it made me realize that I remember exclaiming to somebody that life isn't about, it isn't about how much money you make. It's not about, a job. It's about how you treat one another and the relationships you keep with one another. And I never understood that until that moment. And I remember being so like blown away. Like, it was just a very eye-opening experience for me, So, at the time, I didn't realize that that's what was happening, but now I look back and it's like, oh, I was kind of starting the process of, falling up, becoming a better person despite the loss, and it's weird how that happens, So, I just got us to a really dark place there, but
well, and I'll take it. Falling up is different from your perspective. I mean, you guys all know I lost my 16-year-old, and come to deal with that and understand how the hardest thing to do is, my youngest, who was 14 at the time, said, probably about 4 months ago, she was praying at night, and she goes, I'm really not into praying anymore. And I said, well, why? She goes, well, you always said God's our father. And he goes, you're my dad. And she goes, you'd never let anything happen to me. He goes, where was God when Lily hung herself, was in pain? And that's hard to answer for a 14-year-old. And she's 16 now. And she's coming around through it. But it's things like that from that end gets really hard falling up. And you know what? She's doing well.
That's great. That's great to hear, Wayne.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough share.
Yep.
Yeah. Heartfelt. My,
No,
da- my dad died at 55, right? So, you talk about, I was 17 at the time, right?
oh,
So when you're a young kid, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you look up to your dad. I hear Jeffrey always talking about how his dad went fishing with, you guys went fishing and stuff. It never matters how old you get, right? Is that, there's always that void, kind of that good remember when. But it also is right. You can either feel sorry for yourself, or really, for me, it motivates me to be good to somebody else,
mhm.
right? Is to be able to give something for somebody else. Now, there's been so many signposts in my life, of that I never saw. That one that stands out is a junior college I went to, and the theme of the junior college was not self but others. I'm saying, what the hell is that all about? You know, I mean, it's all about moi, right?
Right.
Me, right? And fortunately, someplace along the line, once you hit the wall, you find out exactly what that means, and now it means everything to me, right? It's what we do. I mean, I think that's the culture that's here, is that what we do every day is like we get on this call and we share our experiences, right? Our strengths and our hopes, right? We all want to get better at what we're doing, and now it obviously business is life, and that's how I perceive it. So when reading this book, I it brings back all these good memories, but it also reminds me of of what we do. So it's enough out of me.
That's good stuff. Yep. Yeah, I agree. And I think to a certain extent, there's probably everybody probably says and thinks the exact same thing, that there comes a certain point in your life where, oh, it really isn't all about me. It really is all about others. And some people learn that when they're 12 or 15 or whatever, and then there's some people that learn it at 35 or 36 or 17, whenever that moment is. So, Joe, it looks like you were trying to say something.
Well, I was just thinking that, I mean, I agree with everything. Your experiences are what's going to help. And as Maz said earlier, back to the coaching, that, having people in your life that can coach you through these things
Mm-hmm.
is important. I said I want to make this book one of the books where I apply the knowledge this year. I that's a goal, and I hope to do it. And in part of at the end of the end of the principle that they were talking about the ABCs or ABCD.
Yep.
And how
I think we lost you there for a quick second there, Joe.
when you think that the ABCD and trying to figure out how we change our mindset. And you remember last week you said he brought up the story about the two people outside and, oh, look at the beautiful blue sky. And the other one's like, it's really hot.
Yeah.
It's taking those ABCs, the adversity, the belief, the consequence, and then the disputation, and just going through it in your mind and learning a new way to look at things. It's like, okay, it is what it is. So yes, it's blue sky outside, and yes, it's hot outside. And your belief is those things also. And I mean, you just have to analyze these things and take the blue sky, as opposed to the hot,
Yeah.
and just make that an exercise, a regular exercise.
Yep.
Not as easy as it sounds.
It's funny because as you were talking about this, and when I read about that section last night, I was like, oh, that's really good stuff. I need to remember ABCD, right? And then just now when you're talking about it, I forgot what the four letters even meant. I knew that the last one was, D something. It was like basically try to challenge the thought process, cognitive behavior type stuff. but it's almost something where it's like, this is game changing stuff. I mean, it's like, if you write this down and memorize it, like, oh, when something happens, you need to go adversity, belief, consequence, disputation, like, and if you can do that, you can change the course of how your life has normally gone. You could totally take it the road less traveled for yourself, yeah.
I was listening to a YouTube or a podcast or something yesterday, and the guy brought up something. He's like, okay, so say there was somebody you're talking to and they're doing something that's wrong, and they believe that it's right, and their ecosystem believes that it's right. How do you convince them that they're doing something wrong? And it kind of just goes this whole thing. It's like, okay, where is your, where is your point of reference? And we always say that is it. Okay, this point of reference is it, when it may not be it for the world. We have to challenge ourselves in what our belief is on that particular adversity.
Yep.
The
I agree with
ABCD.
You can't change other people, places, or things. I believe is you can change your attitude towards other people, places, and things.
Yep. I totally agree with you. Jeffrey, did you have anything that you were going to throw out there?
No, but these old adages come to mind when I hear these things. So as John just said that, you can't change people or places or other people or places, but you can certainly change your mentality, your psychology. I always say this, and this is really resonating with me. Our greatest gift we've been given in this life is the freedom of choice. And the reason why I say that's the greatest gift, because what Maz just said, you can't change the fact that, something happened, or, this place is that way or this way, but you certainly have the ability to choose what to focus on the bright blue sky or the uncomfortable heat. You got a choice. You can pick the good. I read a book once, it was called The Good Finder, I think, right? It's just really simple. You just find the good in everything. You get to choose and focus on that. I mean, it's pretty powerful. It's simple, but very, very powerful, right?
That's awesome. Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, firsthand, Jeffrey, I've given you a call at certain points, and I've had to have you and Karen kind of rein me in a little bit and say, hey, let's not focus on that. Let's think about the other stuff. Like, look at this. And it's like, oh yeah, there is that, and it's not, I think they mentioned it. I can't remember if this chapter or the one before, where it was like, you're not thinking that you can fly, you know what I mean? But it's, just choosing the thing to focus your energy on, I think we can all agree that we've had leaders in our professional world that, I look at like some of these chapters, and I was thinking about some of the leaders that I've had, and the ones that kind of invoke that emotion of like despair, where there's, I'm just helpless. And those are the ones that were not good leaders. You know what I mean? I look back and it's like, yeah, I didn't really like that guy, but then I look back at some of the more positive leaders, and I think back to or who the good leaders were, and they're almost always were more positive and uplifting, and trying to push you to get to your goals, and in a positive way. That's the difference, is not not being managed by the stick, but by the carrot, you know? Another adage.
I had this mentor in when I was working in Cambridge, and I'd be driving from New Hampshire into Cambridge every day on Route 93. And if you know the route, Jeffrey does. I mean, all of a sudden, once you hit the Mass border, right, it's a free for all. and I'd be picking this guy up, and we'd drive in together. And this guy has just this positive attitude all the time, you know. And you know, people are driving, you know, they'll cut you off, and if you look at them, right, they'll give you the finger, and you know, and I'm saying, what are these guys in such a big effing rush for? He says, John, you know, they might be taking their wife to the hospital.
Karen said that too, actually. She said something like that before.
Yeah, and I'm saying, you know, it makes me feel about that big, you know. And I'm saying, you know, you're cutting me off, right? It's right, and don't you know that you know who I am,
right?
And you know, it's just you know, I have to sit there for another half an hour in silence in traffic, you know, thinking about how stupid I was or how selfish I was when I said that.
You know, I always look at it. If you have a choice, if you ever trip running up the stairs, it doesn't hurt near as bad as you trip falling down the steps. So if I'm going to fall, I'd rather fall up than fall down.
It's true. If you're gonna get hurt, you might as well. Or if you're gonna fall, you might as well fall forward. You know, and fall going up. Yep, I agree. Well, I think anybody else any other thoughts on this? Anything they wanted to share? Ray, good to see you back. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to let everybody go. We've called this morning, Jeffrey.
Yes.
Back to the 9 a.m.
Yeah, we've got a 9 a.m. call. Yeah, we'll make it a quick one, and then tomorrow we have I think it's Grupo NGN on Contact Center, so that'll be really good. Cool. We got a lot of Contact Center stuff going for whatever reason right now, so I'm excited.
Sweet.
We'll see you at 9.
Sounds good, guys. Have a nice day.
See you guys.
See you.